how can we get Tech in Asia back up again and be really focused, execute it really very well because we are working on a tight budget and make Tech in Asia great again. Yeah. So I think that's my top focus. Sorry.
Sorry.
I know.
I made a face.
I know. When you laugh, and I realized.
It's like, oh no.
Oh no. Shit. You should definitely.
We'll see if I manage to edit that out. But hello and welcome to another episode of Startup Snapshot, a Tech in Asia podcast where we're talking to the leaders among innovators in the Asian startup scene about their founder journeys, their highest and lowest moments, and how they've overcome the challenges they've faced along the way. My name's Nat, and before we get right into it, Happy New Year. I hope 2019 treated you well. And if not, there's always 2020 to look forward to. So to kick off this year for Startup Snapshot, we're going into the Tech in Asia story. With me in our office conference room / makeshift studio are Willis Wee and Maria Lee, CEO and COO at Tech in Asia. Hi guys, how's it going?
Hey Nat, how's it going?
Hey Nat.
So maybe let's jump right into it. Let's start with Willis first.
Sure.
Let's talk a little bit about how you founded Tech in Asia, because I don't think this is a story that you've told a lot of people, or at least on record. But how did you come to found Tech in Asia?
It was really by chance because just an ignorant student, not knowing what to do in life. So I was just very curious about like what's happening in the space of like advertising, technology, and entrepreneurship. So just coffee by coffee, I was just having the chance to meet with different founders. And the way that I get into a coffee meeting with them is that I'll just tell them that meet me for coffee, you buy me, and I'll write a good story.
Wow.
So yeah, so that was the way that Tech in Asia started. It was really just like coffee by coffee. So soon enough, I think I just profiled more than at least like 50 companies and startups, and that's where like the VCs start to get noticed. And was just very lucky to have met Wilson from East Ventures.
How did that happen? How did he discover you, or did you seek him out? Like which one was it?
So he added me on LinkedIn. And he was very curious because like somehow I covered quite a bit of his portfolio companies.
Okay.
And in fact, there's only 3 companies. There are only 3 companies.
But this was 2011, 2012?
2011.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Late 2010.
Right. So early days of East Venture.
Very early days.
Okay.
And then he added me on LinkedIn and I saw his title. It says like venture capitalist.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds very fluff back in the days. So I accepted and I just texted him and asked for like coffee because I was just very, very curious about what does a VC do, right?
Right.
So we met up at McDonald's because that's the nearest from SMU and probably the cheapest. I'm not confident that he's buying that. So we met and he was asking a lot of questions. I was just munching my burgers away because I was late for class. And then he started asking me about like, what am I wanting to do with this blog? What's my vision? Why am I doing this? What motivates me? Who are my target audiences? What's my page views? How do we monetize and things like that?
Right.
Yeah.
So it turned into a pitch meeting.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
But without me knowing.
Right.
Yeah.
So what happened after that? Did he follow up or did you write a story about him?
I didn't write a story about him because it was really more about like me telling him my story. Mm-hmm. So I remember very vividly that as we crossed the road and part ways, he was just telling me that like, hey Willis, like why don't you send a deck to me and then because we're looking for media companies to back. And he believes that a media company with a strong mission can really help to build up this entire technology ecosystem in Asia.
Right.
So I didn't know what he was really asking for. Basically, he's wanting to give me money, I suppose, right? Uh-huh. And I just built a deck just based on like my very lame ass like business 101 mod that I took from SMU.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an entrepreneurship mod. And I passed him a deck. And then he invited me to Jakarta. That opened up my eyes. I met with a lot of like-minded founders. So William from Tokopedia was there. Zaki from Bukalapak was there.
Right.
And the founder of like Macari was there as well. And so that was a really eye-opening experience. And then when we hit back to Singapore, I met up with Batara and also Wilson.
Right.
And then they just like gave a check on the spot.
Okay. So you met them and then they gave you the check, and that was officially Tech in Asia. Or was it still called Penn Olsen back in the day?
Yeah.
Right. So what led from Penn Olsen? Because it was called Penn Olsen. Why was it called Penn Olsen?
Because it's fun to like pen down your thoughts.
Right.
And it's awesome to learn. So I kind of like wanted
Was
to.
it a pun?
Not exactly. I mean, not exactly.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's a very lame name. I would admit that. So, yeah, like when Penn Olsen first started, I think I was really aiming it to become more like a advertising agency, because I was very passionate about like the world of like digital marketing, and then slowly I especially after experiencing agency life, that is not quite the thing that I expected, and I think I fell in love in like entrepreneurship and how a lot of founders, have like great vision, great mission, and just trying to build great things. So covering and helping them along the way, it's a lot more like fulfilling. So then we changed the name from Penn Olsen to Tech in Asia, which is like very direct and right on your face, that yes, it is a publication that represents and supports the technology and startup ecosystem in Asia.
Right. Okay. So now Tech in Asia got a check from East Ventures.
Sure.
Your first round of funding.
Yep.
I think you talk about this quite a bit in our internal like town halls, in our internal like some of your letters as well. You talk about how now as a founder you're very different from who you were back then. That was almost like 7-8 years ago.
Yeah.
So how exactly were you very different back then?
This is very embarrassing. So I would say that like maybe 9 years ago, in fact, I am probably very ignorant, very arrogant as well, because I was scoring A's, taking special papers and just like excelling both in academics and in my extracurriculum activities, right?
Right.
So I know like was arrogant, and I thought I knew everything, and obviously the market kind of like correct your behavior. So I think I vividly recall that like there was once where we actually got in like revenue and we were profitable in the first 2 years of Tech in Asia, or very close to profitability. So one of the partners, who is Batara, he was very upset because I clearly didn't know the difference between like recorded revenue versus cash flow. So he was asking me to kind of like in a very nice way in the beginning to tell me that like, oh, you have to like be very clear that these are unearned revenue in your receivables. You haven't collected the cash, so it can't really help you in terms of like the cash flow and pay your bills, right? So I was like, who cares? Like it's recorded as revenue, it's profitable.
Who cares? And he was so nice about it, that like opening the conversation, but you were like, who cares?
Yeah. So and then thinking back is very embarrassing, because like Batara is like one of the most respectable entrepreneurs, right? In our time. He founded Mixi, one of the biggest IPO of a social media company. And like here you have like a, I don't know, local Singaporean talking back to like someone who has like vast experience building companies. So that was very embarrassing. And then I think he got really upset, and he just, flipped and just asked me like, Willis, just get your shit together. And I remember like I actually at that point of time I still didn't know that I was in the wrong, and I was like trying to kind of like argue back for the sake of winning, and that was super embarrassing. So, but thankfully Wilson was there. So Wilson was very nice, very calm,
right? And
he was just trying to like just break us up and say, okay, you just like cool down.
So he was like the good cop, bad cop kind of thing.
Kind of.
Okay.
I don't know. You have to ask them. But yeah, but that was, I think, was one of the most like hardest lesson learned, and it really humbled me down a lot.
Right. Okay, so Maria, can you attest to this, that like he's no longer the same person as he was back then? Now having worked with Willis for how long has it been?
Almost a year.
Almost a year.
Yeah, so I think that is definitely true.
No pressure.
No, it's true. I mean, I think you still see flare-ups of the old anger and the old temper sometimes. And let's be real, I'm very guilty of it myself. And I think the one thing we've learned is both of us have evened out as we've gone on, and then we've also learned to not both spike in anger at the same time,
Right?
Because that is a clear recipe for disaster. And so,
So coordinated spikes.
yeah, exactly. Offset.
Offset.
Yeah, but I think it's definitely true, and it's. I mean, I've my own emotional journey. I think as a leader and a manager as well, like. You understand and you feel so bad after those moments of anger, and you reflect and you're like, why did I do that? So yes, I think I can definitely testify that Willis has
Thank you.
improved immensely. And I didn't even know you 8 years ago. I knew you 1 year ago, and I think the change has been pretty dramatic.
Right.
Thank you.
No, and you talked a little bit just now about how in the first 2 years of TechNasia, you already brought the company to be profitable. What was the monetization strategy back then? Was it ads? Because I know branded content where, like partnership content where I'm working now did not exist back then. So was it all pure ads on the platform?
Yeah, I think that was the good old days where banner ads were able to kind of like help you monetize very effectively.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, like 2009, 2010, I was really just purely relying on banner ads to pay for my tuition fee, at the same time like paying for some of the freelance writers that we have.
Right.
So in 2011, we did our own conference, so that was profitable as well, thankfully.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did more conferences. So that was the good old days.
Right.
Where conferences are very rare, but now like you have a lot of like different tech conferences, in all the key tech hubs.
Right. The conference scene has been saturated.
For sure.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but you were a student at the time. Even when you got East Ventures funding, you were still in school.
Yeah.
And how were you balancing? Were you still getting straight A's? Were you still excelling in your extracurricular activities despite running TechNasia, a profitable company?
Interesting. So I think after junior college, I decided that like education is like really overrated. So when so when I get into like SMU, I think I was purposefully only picking modules that I'm interested in.
Okay.
So for example, like financial accounting, management accounting, all the entrepreneurship mods, I took them, because that was really interesting, and I find that it will really help to propel my career. So I think one of the things that really got me to be very arrogant as well, think about that, right? That I'm a third year student coming to fourth year, and then I haven't graduated, and I receive a check from like a VC. Big deal, right?
Yeah.
So that really got me to be like arrogant. And at the same time, to answer your question, I'm not getting straight A's. I'm honestly like screwing up my SMU grades.
Right.
It was not great, but I was also really spending a lot more time building panels and TechNasia.
Right. And how, was your family, were your parents like on board with the idea of you as an entrepreneur, or were they like, no, go the traditional way because this thing that you're doing it's risky? Was there that kind of sentiment from your parents or your families or your loved ones at the time?
My parents actually don't really understand, even up to today, like what I do. So as long as I can put food to the table and pay the bills, I think they are fine. So 10 years back, I think they're already very happy that I could get into like a local university. Okay. So I think that's a big thing in Singapore, right? That you can get into local uni, and then that kind of like signifies that like, okay, like this guy, it's not too bad, right? So I think that's on that level, they're already pretty satisfied. So yeah, like really no pressure from them. I think in a way, it's a good thing. I have a lot of freedom to build and explore without having the pressure from the family.
Right. So you kind of had this one track mind at a time because there were no external pressures coming in to distract you from running TechNasia. And the only kind of friction so far was Batara telling you to sit down and get your shit together. Was that the wake-up call at the time because your investor scolded you? Or were you still running free and recklessly throughout your time as founder back then?
Yeah, I think reckless is definitely the right word to describe. Back then, you really have to understand that there were very little resources. I think Paul Graham of YC was just starting to write his essays, right? So no one really can tell you in your face, like, to understand what's your total addressable market, what's product market fit, how do you get to product market fit, what's product management. All these are very alien topics. 10 years ago. So really, I think a lot of the entrepreneurs that started like 10 years ago in this startup scene, we were really just, learning from failures. We try and then we fail, and then like we try to understand like why things failed, and then we just keep trying again. There was no like guidelines, there were no like protocols, to on like how to do things right. So I think that was like pretty difficult. But I think it also perhaps like made me a lot more resilient.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And you talked a little bit about Y Combinator, and right now you're wearing your Y Combinator jacket.
Sure. Because it's cold here.
Yes, it is very cold in this room. But how was your experience at Y Combinator?
To be candid, I think it's a very, very good experience. I think I learned a lot, but at the same time, I think I got a lot of like misconception on what Silicon Valley is all about. So I think the good thing is that it really opened up my mind on what building a great product is. And meeting with a lot of very smart founders, I think that's also gives me a fresh perspective on what kind of like impact and companies that other people are building. And in general, I think YC is really good in really learning like the basic building blocks of how you actually build a great company. What is not so good, again, like this is not YC's bad, but probably my own misinterpretation, right? Is that I think in the Valley, if you read, for example, like some of the Valley, blogs, tech blogs, right? You basically see a lot of like, okay, this company raised this amount of money, and then you move fast and you break things, and then you just like get growth regardless, you know. Just
the whole
be super
Facebook
mean.
slogan of like move fast, break things.
Kind of, yeah.
Right.
So I think I maybe have like misinterpreted that. So I think it was after YC we went like super crazy on like trying very, very very hard, right? To be like a much more valuable company, but not necessarily a much more impactful company. I think that's like a difference.
Right.
Yeah.
There's definitely a difference. But from that time when you got the check to you joining Y Combinator in 2015,
yeah,
was that a period of just building and not exactly achieving high growth until the moment that you decided to be super reckless with all the information that you got from Y Combinator?
I think after YC, definitely they got us to think much bigger, right? But bigger also means that you definitely have to take more risk. And I think taking more risk in general is fine, right? But it's just responsible risk and also scaling in a very sustainable way. I think we didn't do that. Right. And a lot of things that again, on hindsight, that we did, we thought was very aligned with the mission of the company. But when we executed it, we realized that it was very off the course, I would say, right? And I think that's fine. Like from time to time, you have to like break the boundaries and do things and experiment, right? But I think what we felt is that we kept financing these projects, and to a certain extent that we kind of like forgotten the core of Tech in Asia is our mission, which is to build and serve the technology and startup ecosystem. And we do it, by bridging the information gap and also the connection gap. So some of our most like core products, like our newsroom and our events, right? I was basically just neglecting them. But in fact, like these are the things that really help the company grow and build a strong foundation. And it's basically the heart of the company. Yeah. So when I got distracted with all the different experiments, I think the core products basically suffered.
Right. And how exactly were you neglecting these different aspects of the business? For example, let's take the newsroom first. Like, how were you neglecting the newsroom?
I think for the newsroom is that I basically wasn't sensitive enough in the changing face of like media. So in the changing landscape of media, so there was this like BuzzFeed model where you just like grow ridiculously crazy, right? And hope that the page views actually translate to ad dollars.
Right.
I think we can clearly say that doesn't quite work very well. And then there was subscription, right? So we tried subscription back in like 2014, right? And we were super ahead of the time. So that didn't quite work out because of like, this different technologies that didn't come together. We're obviously not able to pay to build our own payment gateway. But I was not very sensitive, and I just went like full on the so-called like BuzzFeed model. That really didn't work very well for us. The content quality suffered. Our readers are kind of like feeling that there's no identity from Tech in Asia. And also like the theory of like more page views and more ads money, it's very clear that data was telling us that that doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah. So I wasn't quick to kind of like put it off and try a different model. But eventually we still roll out our own subscription and paywall, and that worked very well for us, right? So I think we were late, but thankfully not too late.
Okay. So now in between that first attempt at subscription to the current run of having a subscriber base that actually grew pretty fast when we set it up.
Sure.
There were a few moments in Tech in Asia's history, in your history as a founder, that I guess in our previous discussions, kind of defined your founder moment, right? There were some attempts, for example, there was a Tribe project. Let's talk a little bit about Tribe. What exactly was this Tribe project?
I think Tribe is a project that it's like super ambitious, very idealistic. It's basically a blockchain-based project where we believe that like everything should be decided by the community, right? And the community who decides that would be rewarded with tokens that we issue, right? So I think to really understand Tribe, we're basically trying to answer a few questions. For example, like what made us think that a certain founder or startup should be featured on Tech in Asia? What made us decide like that story is better than the other story? Like who are we to kind of decide that who speaks at the conference and who doesn't, right? So the whole theory is to really make Tech in Asia for the community, by the community, right? And to have this like trustless and full and just let the community run the show, right? And to basically do that, we thought that like it actually came out from a thought experiment, right? And then we believe that like the blockchain could actually help us achieve that. Again, on hindsight, I think it's actually very idealistic, but I think the thought process behind it isn't wrong. But the way that we approach it is probably a little bit dangerous.
Right.
Yeah.
And how was it very dangerous?
I think it's dangerous because I remember having this like back and forth with our shareholders on like whether or not this is the right move. And we all agreed that by having Tribe, we might just risk our core competency and our reputation, which is just having a super solid newsroom, right? So the blockchain and Tribe is a very by the community approach. And the other way is fully owned by Tech in Asia and just us and us curating, and people trust us because it's Tech in Asia, right? So by going the community approach 100%, that might just destroy Tech in Asia and what we built in the last like 7 years. Right. So at the very end, I decided against it because there was a hunch that it didn't feel right. After a while, I let my excitement kind of like subside and just like sleep on it, think about it. And I guess on hindsight, like the hunch was right. And then 2 weeks later, the whole crypto market crashed. I'm not sure whether you remember.
Yeah.
And then I think we all like heaved a sigh of relief. But yeah, so I think that was a pretty dangerous moment. Yeah, where it could just really totally go wrong.
So if I can interject, in addition to Tribe, we had a lot of different other products and services at the same time. And I mean, I wasn't here at the time, but it feels like that was a moment where Tech in Asia was transforming itself from a traditional media company, like digital media company, into more of a tech company. And we were kind of changing our identity. And then as a result, what products and services and value we were offering to our community at the time. How do you think about that process in terms of like how you decided to expand and maybe like broaden our reach and also maybe redefine the core fundamentals of the company?
Yeah. So I think at that time, definitely, I think we were really trying to innovate and like break a lot of boundaries and transform ourselves from like a digital media company into like a full-fledged technology company. One of the things that like I think was inspired by YC, but I could have just misinterpreted it wrongly. Yeah. So I think there are a few things, right? That I think first of all is that like or rather like any founder or any operator would really have to understand like what's the mission of the company and if the current model is actually efficient and effective to reach the mission, right? Second of all, is it sustainable? Sustainable in the sense that like you just can't continuously burn money to for the sake of like the mission, right? Because that's not a viable economic model. And I think the third of all, which I think is the most important, is like the DNA of the company, right? We have been like a newsroom-led company for the longest time, right? And I think storytelling has always been the core competency of Tech in Asia, and I think we should leverage more of that rather than trying to be something or someone that we are not, that investors or like peer pressure or like even myself, right? Trying to force feed a persona that is not us. I think that's very important.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think there was this sentiment going around at the time. I forgot exactly who I was having this conversation with, but that whole idea of having content that is community driven has the potential to run into the risk of, if the industry wants memes, they get memes. So from a respected journalistic publication, we turn into a platform that's more like Reddit, where the front page is full of memes and pop culture references that could eventually destroy the entire Tech in Asia identity. Was that part of the reason that you realized that it might not have been such a great idea?
All in hindsight. So I'll be honest, at that point of time is that, it's like YC goes by, make something people want, right?
Yeah.
So I think these can be taken in the right way and also in the wrong way, right? So for sure, like if you put like a meme or a hot shiny object on Tech in Asia, I'm sure that would, or in fact like a very interesting and clickbaity headline, that will definitely get like a lot of views, right? And if you just look at like on surface level, the data would just tell you that that's what people want, right? But I think again, like what I learned is that sure, you make something people want, but at the same time, don't lose yourself. Yeah, stay true to the mission, stay true to the persona and the DNA of the company.
Right. Yeah. Now, at the time that Tribe was still a thing, quite a lot was invested into the Tribe project.
Yeah.
And shutting it down obviously had the ramifications of our runway becoming incredibly short at the time.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about that impact that Tribe had on Tech in Asia. What happened when you decided to shut down Tribe?
I think there's a lot of pain for sure.
Yeah,
there was a lot of pain, and we obviously put in a lot of effort on designing the whole system. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun though.
How far did we get actually?
We could just publish basically. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So it was that close.
Right.
Yeah. So I think. Again, I think it was a good thing, I would say, because if you think about it, is that if Tribe didn't happen, right, that wouldn't have like got me thinking about the extreme end, right, of like a full-fledged, platform, community-driven that is not very Tech in Asia, right? Because if I've not gone there, I would have not known like what's there, right?
Yeah.
But having, gone through that whole process of like writing the paper and have like very deep thoughts about how this is gonna impact the business and alter our DNA, it gets me to appreciate more of like what we have built in the first 7 years, and give me like firm conviction that yes, I think we should just stay true to who we are. Right. So I think that was a time where we very quickly launched a subscription. We got back to like really high quality journalism. We start to invest more on content. Of course, and we start to like shut down things, for example, like our recruitment, which is not quite aligned with our storytelling capabilities at that point of time, right? And a few other projects like the ticketing platform and whatnot. And just be very, very focused on storytelling.
Right.
And without Tribe, I think we wouldn't have known that our runway is running short, right? So on hindsight, I think it's a good thing. And one of the most lucky things that I think I did right is to quickly shut down all the projects before our runway couldn't even allow us to bounce back as a company.
Right.
So I think my threshold was around like 12 months of runway. So when Tribe when we were about to just publish, we were at 13 months. So that really got me to think very, very hard, that whether or not Tribe is the right thing to do.
Right. So despite that bounce back, there was a dip. There was a fall before the bounce back.
For sure.
And because of the loss of this project,
yes,
because of the amount of investment that we put into it and having to shut it down, there was an aspect of having to fill up that runway again. And what happened then was Tech in Asia had a layoff.
Yep.
Right. We let go of 30% of our workforce.
Yep.
So let's talk about the idea behind that. There was obviously a lot of emotion in the office at the time.
Oh, for sure.
How did you feel? How did that decision come about that you had to lay off people? Because that couldn't have been easy. But having to decide that for the sake of the many, some will have to suffer. What was your thought process at the time?
I have two thought process, right? The first one is just very logical, right? I look at the spreadsheet and I ask myself like, what's the number that I have to hit, right? It's just very numbers driven. And then we look at our workforce and we try to be as lean as possible, right? So that's very logical, right? And the second thought process is more emotional, right? And ask myself like, who really embodies the culture of Tech in Asia? Who can really help us to kind of like bounce back? And like, of course, like a lot of people have been working in Tech in Asia for a long time. So it's always going to be very, very painful, right?
Yeah.
To let them go. So I defaulted to like the logical decision making, no emotions, just very purely numbers driven. So that was also how I explained to most people. I'll just say that like, as a friend, I really hate to lose you, but you have to understand that like I have to do this because I have to be logical. It can't be because you're my friend and then you stay. And second of all is that it's to make sure that the company is able to survive, and I'm super sorry about that.
Right.
So I remember like one of the team members, was in shock, and he's a very close friend of mine. And when he went out, he was angry, and then he was sad, and then he was, feeling empathetic about my position, and he was angry again, and he was sad. And all of a sudden, I just broke down and cried. Yeah, and I told him, I'm super sorry. I suck as a CEO, I suck as a boss. Like I shouldn't have let this happen. And like, I mean, we remain very close, but thinking that like still makes me sad.
Right. And aside from just him, like the general office atmosphere just was destroyed because 30% of the office was gone, and we were in Suntec, right? It was a
Thanks for saying that, bro.
Hey, I was there. I was there.
Yes.
But we were in a huge office.
Yes.
To suddenly have that empty space really rocked the boat in terms of the Tech in Asia spirit.
Yeah.
I think I can say it's because when I joined Tech in Asia, it was really just like 1 month, 2 months before this whole thing happened.
Oh, okay. Cool. Congrats. You survived.
Thank you very much. Thanks for keeping me around. But there was this sense of in that 1-2 months, the spirit just died. And how did you feel about that inevitable impact of to save the numbers, we have to let some people go, but destroyed the rest of the spirit? Did you feel that right off the bat, or was it something that you realized post retrenchment?
Yeah, so I mean, this is my real huge layoff, right? As the CEO of the company, so definitely there are a lot of things I could have done much better.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like I to be very honest, I really just go by logic.
Yeah.
No, very little emotion at that point of time, because I think that the company is much greater than anyone else, including myself. So definitely only after the layoff that I realized that, oh damn, like there are a few things, or rather than many things, that I could have done much better to make and create a better atmosphere, maybe explain better, slow down a little bit. But at that point of time, again, like just firefighting mode, founders mode, it's wartime, right? I can't keep thinking back on like what could I have done better. I can only take the current data, feedback, and just do better for the people in the company.
Right.
So definitely I've done a lot of mistakes. But at that point of time, it's like I can only look forward.
Right.
Yeah.
And aside from just the people that you let go,
Yeah.
and this happens to every company that experiences a layoff, experiences retrenchments, but a lot of senior team members were also poached by other companies, other publications. Was this something that you expected?
Yes and no. I think people tend to like to push, talent from Tech in Asia.
Yeah.
Right.
I've noticed,
I think that's something to be proud of.
Yeah.
I don't blame the other companies, right? Just being opportunistic. I think it's a cold hard truth, of like building a company and building a business, right? It's just it's a talent war out there. So it didn't really caught me by surprise. Some of the people they went on to like better places, and I'm just very happy for them. Yeah, so not surprised.
But did it not affect you in any way, knowing that some of these senior members, as you mentioned before, just a little bit earlier, a lot of these people had been there for a very long time. Some of them 5 to 7 years in Tech in Asia, helped you build Tech in Asia to what it was. Were essentially kind of the core culture of Tech in Asia, and these people left the company. Did you have a feeling of maybe abandonment, that these people who were with you some of them from the very beginning, were leaving, and there was nothing that you could do about it because you had already made some of those mistakes along the way?
I think I have like there are two phases of like how I think about this, right? The immediate thing that the immediate emotions, obviously, like very sad, like how could you, I treated you so well and things like that, right? But that only lasted, I would say, 3 months, and of course, I also didn't really react very well on some of the departures, but I guess it's like it's a learning process, right? That it's the first time that this thing happened to me. I have to process the whole emotion. My first reaction wasn't great, and it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
But phase 2 really got me to really got me to grow up and be a lot more mature, right, on my thinking and perspective. Maria definitely helped a lot. I talked to her on a lot of different emotions, how I feel, and getting different perspective, like from Maria and other founders, really helped as well. It's that like if people come and go, right, and you can feel sad, you can feel angry, or you can feel happy, and just like bless them, right? So I think it's much more easier, and life is too short, right? And just be neutral at the very least, right? Don't say anything, right? Just focus. And also at that point of time, the real big test is how can we get Tech in Asia back up again, right? And be really focused, execute it really very well, because we are working on a tight budget, and make Tech in Asia great again. Yeah. So I think that's my top focus. Sorry.
Sorry.
I know.
I made a face.
I know. When you laugh, and I realized.
It's like, oh no.
Oh no! Shit. You should definitely.
We'll see if I manage to edit that out. But okay, but you did say just now wartime. This was Tech in Asia wartime mode. You were wartime CEO, and this was around the time that I guess we started looking at Maria, I think Maria came into the picture around that time. What was your perspective, Maria? Now going back to you after having focused on Willis for a large part of this interview.
He's the important one. It's okay.
What was your perspective on Techniche at the time? And what did you feel about joining a company at that stage?
Sure. So one, as I was interviewing, all of this was very well hidden from me. The team did not do a good job of explaining our current situation. I think there was whatever vague jokes and references made to it, but I did not actually realize how much trouble we were in when I joined. And then the other thing was that, I was originally hired not to be COO. I was hired to be, the director of studios, and came in at that level. And so the switcheroo from, being bumped up from just, I guess, a regular director into the COO role was also a bit shocking. But, at the time, I think my general attitude was like, why not? Let's do it. Let's just get in there and try to figure it out. So I will say, coming into the company, the first few months were particularly difficult. Our runway was looking pretty scary. Our revenue pipeline was looking pretty scary, and the morale was truly quite low. And I felt it was weird, especially in the beginning, because I felt like everybody pinned so many hopes and dreams on me. Like I was going to make the difference. I was like the new person. They're like, yeah, exactly. And I was like, what the hell? Like, I'm just here to join a startup and get out of my corporate bubble and whatever. But actually, what's always been amazing to me is how Tech in Asia has always felt about ourselves on the inside versus what the community sees on the outside. Mm-hmm. Because even as we were going through all this crazy internal change and restructuring and all these emotions, the company on its own, it was still chugging along. We were still producing amazing news. We were still producing great events, and we were still connecting the community. And so, to me, the fact that we were able to do that, even though the inside was a total mess, meant that there was actually magic happening, almost against our will. And if we could just sort out some of the internal stuff, some of our processes, our team, get everybody back to feeling really confident and excited about working at the company, then the sky was the limit, Right. Because usually when things are that sloppy inside, you can start to see it on the outside. But the community was actually still responding well, and we were still doing our jobs as a company. And so that gave me a ton of hope. Especially, I think, during the first few months where I was still trying to understand what was happening and get my feet underneath me.
Right. So when did you actually realize how deep into our troubles we were? Was it before or after you decided to take the COO role?
Oh, well afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was really the belief that the community, that the industry had in our core mission that led you to still take it?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I moved here, so I moved to Singapore over 2 years ago, and was feeling really locked up in my big tech bubble, and wanted to get more involved in the community here. So my very first tech community event was our Tech in Asia conference in Singapore, and I was like, whoa, it was amazing. It was at Suntech. The speakers on stage were so awesome. I was standing next to Eduardo for one of the panel sessions, and I was like, this is crazy, right? I moved from Silicon Valley, and all of a sudden I'm standing next to Eduardo. Anyways, and then when I was looking for a job, my most used platform was Tech in Asia Jobs.
Right.
And my most read news was Tech in Asia News. So for me, I was actually an avid user of almost all of our products and services, and those things were still running. And I was just thinking, if it's making a difference to someone like me, someone part of the tech community, but just looking to get more engaged, then we can continue to deliver this value to other people as well.
Right.
And so actually, I just believed in the product.
Right.
I believed in the company. And my thing is always I've told Willis this so many times, but I've never wanted to be a founder or an entrepreneur because I just don't think I have great ideas. But what I'm really fucking good at is making other people's great ideas work way better.
Right.
I can take something and make it work better. I can get the processes into place. I can get the team and organization into place.
Smoothing out all the kinks.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And that's what I saw in Tech in Asia. I saw something that was so amazing, even though, no offense, none of y'all knew what you were doing from a business process side, nor did you understand how to manage a budget or anything like that. But that's the stuff I knew. And if I believed in the mission, then I can bring what I'm good at which is getting an organization actually running in the most effective way possible.
All right. So back to Willis. What did you feel about Maria? Was this the exact same sentiments? Did you feel that she was the one that could smoothen out the kinks? Was that what you got from Maria during her interview?
No. I mean, in an interview, it's very difficult to kind of see this kind of how would I say, skill sets and performance, right, and output. Like, only time will tell, right?
Right.
But what I see, and I remembered we had coffee at Yakun, and was really someone who is super excited, believes in our mission, believes in our company. I was already very candid with her on what are my thoughts, what are the challenges, and just someone that has fresh perspectives and wouldn't mind rolling up her sleeves and just get into the things, And so I remember telling her that it's going to be a lot of hard work. And that was, honestly speaking, at that point of time, I didn't know that our ex-CEO was about to leave.
Right.
Yeah, so it was only the first day. And that was also when I knew that our ex-CEO was departing. So that changed things a lot for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
My joke is that I got the world's fastest promotion because it was the first meeting of the first day where Willis and our former CEO sat down with me and were like, "Oh, well, he's leaving, so you want to step up?" And I was like,
Yeah,
what?
Promotion within an hour.
Yeah, literally the first hour on the new job.
Yeah.
Nice. And you still took it. So congratulations. Almost a year in. We're glad to have you. But before we get into that, what would the both of you say? Maybe let's start with Willis. What would you say was the moment when, after all the downs that we experienced, that downward trajectory, that we started looking up, the point where we actually started making it again?
I think there are three, I would say, turning points. I think the first one is definitely subscription.
Right.
So we basically hit our annual target, right, within a month. So that really got us excited, and that really got us to start believing again. The second thing is just my own recovery. So obviously there are a lot of battle wounds, a lot of self-criticism, reflection, and I would have to admit that I wasn't super focused on really trying to do good shit, and I was still beating up myself and still thinking about the past, right? But when that all changed and I decided that enough is enough, I have to get back my old self, be a better version, and start shipping. I think that's a change. The third thing is when Maria was really trying her very best to pull everything together, particularly our Sync event in July. So we didn't really have much time. Everyone was still, again, like myself, recovering. And she was the one that really led by example, and that really helped me to recover. And when the way that I saw her work just made me think that no, I should just be my best and make sure that Maria is successful, and at the same time that will really help me recover. So we just shipped. It was a lot of hard work. Nobody believed that we could actually deliver Sync. If AppWorks is listening to this, then they would probably be scaring the shit out of themselves, but this year will be fine, Jessica. So that's something that really put everything together. And then when Sync happened, right, it was magical. Then you were there, everyone was there, and then I think that really changed the entire mood of the company. And then I think we're very lucky that Astrid was there, Putra was there, Henry was there, our teammates from the Jakarta office. And I think they brought home something magical as well. And that really helped to send across a message in Indonesia that, hey, things are fine. I think we're bouncing back. Yeah, and that was in July. I think from July onwards after Sync, I think the old Willis is back. I think I'm 2x more efficient, more clear. Of course, a lot more to learn. but I'm definitely contributing a lot more.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And now, well, now Technasia hit profitability again. Well, this year,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It was really early this year that happened, which was really quick after the whole debacle of last year. We switched to subscriber model.
Yep.
We launched studios. We hit profitability. And we actually started this thing, Project Culture, which was also an effort to reinvigorate the life, the spirit of Technasia's team. Let's talk a little bit about this. How did you guys come to talk about we should have something official that's kind of official to bring up the spirit in the office?
Get out of
again?
war mode, basically.
Yeah, get out of war mode.
I will start on the war mode, and
Okay.
I'll let Maria talk about like the peace mode.
Okay.
So I think the war mode was really just drummed up by me. I really want to have like one common focus, one common enemy, which is to make sure that the company is sustainable and we get to profit as soon as possible, right? So in that, I remembered I again, I'm not proud of it, right? But maybe it's necessary, right? But if I would do it again, I would have done it very differently. So I was I made a very aggressive town hall, and to make sure that everyone really understand like my true frustration on like what am I not happy about. Basically, there's no sense of excellence, there's no sense of urgency. Everyone was just like chugging along, and that town hall was super aggressive, and it was my motivation to kind of get everyone into a war mode. So while that actually achieved clear communication on like what are we very focused on, which is profitability, but it took away something. It took away the fun, took away the happiness, it took away a sense of like comfort, a thing called home, right? And it made Tech in Asia a little bit more hostile, a little bit more uncomfortable, for the good or for the better, right? But it's not making people feel great. I don't feel great too, but I just thought that at that point of time, that was the best thing to do to get everyone to be very focused. And as soon as we achieve profitability consistently, I think Maria and I were talking. I said that I feel very bad, and I feel like it's time to kind of like switch back, and get back that culture and that old feeling,
Right.
That we all love, and we're all enjoying right now, and therefore like we started Project Culture.
Okay, so now in a peace mode, Maria, why Project Culture? What was the whole idea behind it? And what did you feel about being the one to instigate this peace mode in the company?
Sure. Actually, very similar to the reasons why Willis started war mode as well. It at any point in time in a company, you have to figure out like what's the best way to motivate the employees to produce their best work. And so, again, when I started, morale was really, really low. And I think what we were seeing was that war mode was motivating some people to do their best work, but also people, because they were constantly in fear, they were also unwilling to put like 110% of themselves into the company and their work. And so, we suffered a few tough resignations, I think, earlier in the year. And it just, we got to the point where I think we needed to find better balance, right? Because my understanding of Tech in Asia prior to war mode was like all fun and games, like everybody worked out together and played board games and played poker and blah, 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 like all the time.
Well,
and foosball, like all the time. But then war mode was everybody was like terrified, right? Yeah. And I just felt like what we needed to do, because actually at the end of the day, you can correct me if I'm wrong now, I think we're a great company to work for, really. We respect each other. There's always very clear communication. I think very transparent. There's not a lot of politics. There's not a lot of hierarchy. We have like unlimited leave. Like there's all these amazing things that we do for our employees. But when we were in war mode, a lot of that got overshadowed and people started feeling like the company was a drag or it was like a scary place to be, a hostile environment, whatever. And I just felt like we needed to bring back some of that feeling of home and camaraderie in order to get us to all to work together to create the next thing, right? And so we launched Project Culture mostly to give people like an anonymous way to really feedback on how they were feeling, because it was also clear that perhaps because of the retrenchment that they weren't comfortable really telling us how they were feeling about our work culture and our workplace happiness. And so let people just actually say like, yeah, give them space to voice how they're feeling. And then for us to really not just like let the survey linger there and, nothingness forever, but to take actions based on it. And so we launched Project Culture, and I think, the vast majority, so we've done 2 rounds now. It's been 6 months in between, and the scores have gone up considerably.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes, which is great. And it's been important for us to kind of build in much more regular team social events. The company retreat and flying everyone out to Jakarta for our annual flagship conference was a big deal in October. These are things that, because we've hit profitability. Sorry, and to backtrack, the other thing is that I think prior to peace mode, like the idea of profitability was this like very vague, esoteric concept. It was like, okay, we hit profitability, then what, right? Like It's binary. You're profitable or you're not. But then I don't think we did a good job of explaining, okay, here's what profitability can do for us. We can start to invest back into our own company. We can start to hire different resources that previously were out of reach / out of budget. We can invest on company culture. We can invest on specific events, programs, content, whatever that we feel like the community really needs, and not have to worry about the bottom line every single time. So I think part of, once we hit profitability, it was safer to go into peace mode and actually demonstrate why profitability matters and why employees are also beneficiaries of this like otherwise like nonsensical financial term,
Right. Yeah. Okay. And we did see, like you mentioned, the sentiment in the office has improved. And, hitting profitability, the subscriber model being a successful run. Studio's doing incredibly well, I would say, right?
Yeah.
What's in the plans now for Tech in Asia's near future? What's the plans for 2020?
Go ahead, founder. Tell us your vision.
I think I think for 2020, it's still it's definitely very staying very focused on, again, like our core DNA, what we are strong in, which is storytelling, right? So you definitely would see us investing a lot back to the newsroom, and we would definitely hope to see that our content quality, production, and velocity just improve overall. In terms of studios, I think we're pretty excited about some of the projects that we are running, such as featuring and filming the startup ecosystem in Myanmar. So a lot of this original content that we do with support of some of our sponsors are things that we really, really love and enjoy doing. And it makes financial sense, and hopefully it makes like ROI, for our sponsors. So these are the 2 things that we're definitely going to continue to invest in terms of storytelling. And in terms of like connecting the ecosystem, I think trying to make all of our events like world class is something that is very, very important. So we're not looking into like building or setting up like a lot more events like what we did last time. And I think the focus is more about how can we go deeper? How can we make our conference more world-class and make it a lot more useful? So I think in 2020, if we can achieve all this, like 3 things, I think we'll be, a very healthy and happy company. For the longer term, I think what's really interesting is to also, while we stay in, our comfort zone and leveraging on our strength, it's what kind of experiment can we take, right? That it doesn't hurt our P&L too much, right? That we should remain profitable because that is just being responsible, right? But we definitely will take like 1 or 2 experiments, along the lines of like really helping our users and readers to continue to bridge the information gap and the connection gap. So what that is, I think it's really up to us, to R&D, and whenever we are ready, we definitely would share with our community on like what's next.
Right. And speaking of that community, throughout this entire time, this pretty turbulent moment that marked your experience as a founder, which I guess was kind of an inspiration for this season of Startup Snapshot, the roller coaster ride.
Oh, really?
Of being a founder.
Okay.
Well, now it is.
Okay.
But throughout this whole thing, was there any change in the community sentiment about Tech in Asia's mission? Was there any negative feedback to, for example, the changing to a paid model where they had to pay to read exclusive news, or having to shut down our Singapore and Tokyo conferences and just have one flagship conference in Jakarta this year, launching Sync, which was incredibly exclusive? Was there a negative sentiment to all of this while you were battling everything that was going on with the company's operations itself?
Yeah. So one of the things that really helped me bounce back is that I really get out of the building and talk to a lot of founders, right? So sure, I think there are a lot of questions for sure, right, in terms of our strategy. But in general, I think people do agree with the focus, right? So I think it's not about like making 1 million people kind of like you, right? I think it's more important to make like 100 people love your product, right? Which means that you really have to go deeper, which means that you have to produce a lot more to make the users stick and make the users happy, right? And of course, like the business model that we put into place, the focus that we have, really help to make sure that we get back that focus. So I think it's very understandable for the founders. Of course, like in the wider community, there are of course people who question like, why do I have to pay to read news? Why am I locked out? Aren't we like the all embracing community platform and things like that, right? So sure, I mean these are thoughts and opinions that we heard, right? Which is why we continue to only lock some of our most prized content. But we continue to produce like updated content, news, and occasionally unlock some of our prize content so that people can have a sample, right, of what in-depth journalism means, and continue to serve the underdogs, right? Those people who may not be able to afford the subscription, right? Founders who are just really starting up, or founders who are just ramen profitable, right? And we continue to root for these guys. But of course, we also have to be very fair. That doesn't mean that we go all out, that we burn our pockets to serve this community, right? We have to make this sustainable. This relationship has to be healthy, and I think providing that breadth and also the depth really helps us to serve like the end to end of the community, which really is the mission of Tech in Asia.
Right.
Yeah, if I can add on to that, I would actually say that the vast majority of people who have subscribed are much, much happier with the content we're providing behind the paywall. And while there are still grumblings from people who haven't subscribed, it's part of the reasons because like, yeah, sure, what we used to produce was free and now it's not free. And so you're always going to get some pricing backlash on that one. But I think by and large, the praise from the community has been completely worth it. And honestly, our newsroom feel like they have a lot more direction, a lot more mission, and they actually feel like they get to be the voice of the startup and tech ecosystem here, as opposed to just having to like constantly stay ahead of like the headline, the never ending like cycle of headlines, 24-hour news cycle, and so on and so forth. And specifically on the conference. So this was the first year we did a combined conference. We combined our Singapore, Tokyo, and Jakarta conference all into one. It's in Jakarta. We called it our flagship. It was our biggest one ever. And the vast majority of people also commented on how much better of an experience it was.
Right.
Because one thing that we realized that by having all these events, like we were trying to, the intention was good. We were trying to service all these different markets and also build up the tech community within all these different places. But we were also kind of de facto splitting our own base.
Yeah.
Right? Because we want to be Tech in Asia for the overall Asian tech community. And by having them in different cities and in different countries, we basically were forcing people to either like spend a ton of money and go around to all of them or pick and choose. And this year, because we had all of our awesome speakers, all of our awesome sponsors, and all of our awesome attendees under one roof, like the conversations that happened, the stage content, like the investor pitch opportunities, I think they were all so much better. And the feedback from the conference was like, actually, thank God that you combined these two, right? Like this was a much better experience than it was last year.
Right. Okay. So, well, obviously we've been doing a lot better than around this time last year when we just started this sprint towards a war mode, switch back to peace mode, and now looking more into the future. The big question is, are you looking for an exit for Tech in Asia? What's the future hold for you? I think there was a Slack message just earlier today that I haven't gotten around to, so let's ask this right now.
Great timing, Nat.
Great timing. Yeah. Yeah, sure. I think there's always going to be like interesting conversations that keep coming, going. Especially now, right? Given that the company is posting up like really healthy stats and position, so that's always going to happen. But there's nothing really like official that we should go out and shout, and tell everyone and whatnot, right? I think what's more important is that these are things that I don't really put in much thoughts. Honestly speaking, if someone wants to talk, sure, I'll get a fresh perspective. It works out great. If it doesn't, it's okay, right?
Right.
I don't put in a lot of these thoughts because I've been through like, yes, I should sell the company. No, I shouldn't. Like, this is my baby. And I think I find it kind of like a middle ground where like I just don't give a shit. Yeah, not in a bad way, right? In a way where it becomes a company, it doesn't, right?
Okay.
And I think it's much more important to really just focus on like operations and making Tech in Asia a great company, right? And to make sure that like we serve our users well, we serve our people well, and then we just keep innovating and keep inching forward towards our mission. I think that's the most important thing, right? And on a much longer term thinking, I think it's also very important that like Tech in Asia has like survived for the last 10 years. Right. And I think there's like some statistics saying that like only 4% of the company can survive more than 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So we are one of the 4%. Right. Think about it. It's a pretty amazing achievement. I think what keeps me excited is that like if we can survive for 10 years, right, can we survive another 10 years?
Right.
Can we survive, 100 years? Right. So one of the things is that rather than chasing for that quick exit, or like that quick sense of like achievement, whoa, wow, I'm a founder that exited, right? Is that how can I make Tech in Asia into like an enduring company and that really has like a lasting impact, super mission driven, full of heart, and just a very happy place to work then, right? And this is the Tech in Asia that we have today, and I want to make it like last, right? Sure, I think that term that I recently heard in a podcast. It's called a phoenix, where the company is more than 100 years. They crash and burn. They don't die. They reinvent themselves, and then they just became much stronger. And the cycle repeats, right? So these are the companies that we talk about. It's like companies like IBM. I mentioned to Maria like Apple's not a 100-year-old company, but you can see the evolution. Almost died and then it revived and things like that. I think Microsoft is seeing a little bit of that. Alibaba is striving to do that as well. I think these are the companies that are, have a long-lasting impact, right? And who's to say that like Tech in Asia can't be one of that phoenix, right? One of the phoenixes, right? And I think that's something that I'm more, in tune to work towards too. I will admit that that's something that I have been thinking for the last 2 years. Of course, like in between is like, especially during the tough times, right? I should sell this company, and then I know I shouldn't, right? But building Tech in Asia into like a long-lasting, high-impact, mission-driven company I think it's a lot more meaningful, right? It doesn't matter whether Maria is here, you are here, I'm here, right? People go, people change, right? But the company's mission, its impact, should forever be here. Right. Yeah, and regardless of the management, regardless of the business model. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's something that after what we have gone through in the last 1 year, 18 months, I really have the perspective that like change is the only constant. People say that, but it's very difficult to kind of embrace it. I learned a little bit better on embracing that. Yeah, so if Tech in Asia can be like a 100-year-old company, I'll be super proud.
Right. So it's leaving that legacy, achieving that mission in the long term rather than chasing that short benefit, that short return, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, forget about the legacy, right? I think it's all about like the users, the community, right? In the last 10 years, like looking back, my LinkedIn profile, like the amount of like connections I have with like founders, VCs, and looking at how even our own internal data have proved, right, that has proven that the network of VCs and startups has gotten like so much bigger, right? That's something I'm super proud of. Yeah, and Tech in Asia wouldn't be where it is today without everyone's effort, dedication, hard work, and also trust, right? So whether it's you're an ex team members or current, your contribution is greatly felt, and I think you should be very, very happy and proud that Tech in Asia is where it is today, making a great impact to the Asia startup ecosystem. So for future employees, I guess like we obviously would love to have like a lot more talent joining us. The more the merrier, right? No one's gonna complain. Yeah. So Tech in Asia, we would love to surround ourselves with like very capable and smart people. So if you like to be part of this entire startup scene movement and join a company that's like very mission driven and care a lot about making a great impact, I think Tech in Asia would be the great place to have that flexibility and also that mission driven approach in terms of like building a very sustainable company.
Right. So to all the people past, it's knowing that, Tech in Asia is nothing but the sum of its parts. They all contributed to what Tech in Asia is today. And that's something that I guess people who are future Tech in Asia family, that's something that they can look forward to. Yeah?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And also like there are so many up and downs that our company has gone through. And I would say that Tech in Asia became a lot stronger because we come together at a certain point of time to solve a certain problem at that certain point of time, right?
Right.
So it doesn't matter like, people come and go anyway. So I'm just super thankful that at that point of time, at that moment, that there's always a dedicated team of crew of people who are always, heads down, trying to do their best, and when the time comes to leave, and I think it's all good.
Right. So that's, I think, something that everyone can be proud of, to being part of that team.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Thanks so much for joining me. That's all the time we have for today. Willis, Maria, thank you for sharing. Thank you for talking to me about our company.
Thank you, Nat, for asking all the tough and relevant questions.
For asking all tough, relevant questions, I'm always here. I'll continue to ask them off air whenever I can.
Yes, please do.
Yes. But for all of you, the readers who have any questions, if you want to know more about Tech in Asia, you can head over to techinasia.com, where you can find the latest on the Asian tech and startup scene. Shameless plug on our behalf. If you want to access our premium content for subscribers' eyes only, go to techinasia.com/subscription. And
it's worth it, says everybody else.
You won't regret it. Also, this is the last episode for the second season of Startup Snapshot, so we'll be taking a quick break on air to start production work for season 3. If there's a particular story you want us to tell, let us know at podcast@techinasia.com, and we'll see if we can persuade the right people to come onto the show. As always, if you like this episode, make sure to subscribe from whatever platform you're listening on and check out our back catalog of episodes if you haven't had the chance to. All our episodes are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcasts. And you can also find episodes on the Tech in Asia webpage at techinasia.com/tag/startup-snapshot. For those of you who stuck around since the start of the season, or even all the way from our pilot season mid last year, we appreciate your ears. I hope you aren't sick of my voice just yet, but sincerely, thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed these episodes as much as I have. And for anyone listening who is still listening right now this long into the outro, thanks for listening, thanks for subscribing, and thanks for telling a friend. But do me one last favor. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or whatever, give us a rating. 5 stars is always nice. If you have any issue with me or this episode or any of our episodes so far, again, I'm at podcast@techinasia.com. Let me know what your deal is, or just drop me a message to say hi. I'd love to hear from you. So thanks again for tuning in to Startup Snapshot. My name's Nat. Until next time, goodbye.